How to draw every day. That's what we're talking about today. Welcome, welcome. Let's talk about this because this was really hard for me to learn. Like, I used to be pure chaos, pure, utter chaos. So, I feel like this is the video that I needed. That's why I'm recording it. So, first up, you need to set up an easy trigger for the habit of drawing, right? So, if you have a desk that you sit at every day, make sure that you have a sketchbook ready to go and a pen or pencil or whatever your medium is. Make sure that it's set up in a way that there's no barrier to entry, right? You want it to be as easy as possible to get into the drawing, right? That's why I think that if you do digital work, that's kind of tricky. Maybe if you work on like Photoshop, maybe you should set the computer up so that every time you turn your computer on, that it loads up your Photoshop file or just Photoshop in general, so that as soon as you sit down, it's a trigger for, oh yeah, let me do a drawing right now, right here, right now, right? So this becomes especially important for drawing every day because you don't want to have to rely on willpower to do the setup of it, right? Like you want to flow into the drawing as quickly as possible, make it as easy as possible, right? So what I do is that I have a sketchbook ready to go at all times. Beside me right now, there's a sketchbook. I keep it open. I have a pen ready so that even if I just want to draw for 2 minutes, it's right there, ready to go, right? And you want it to be visible in a way, right? Like you want it to be visible in your daily life. If you want to draw every day, you want to be able to see it regularly, right? So you want to trigger in as many places as possible, right? So you know that you sit down at a specific desk every day, then have your sketchbook ready there. Or maybe you make coffee in the same place. Maybe you want to spend 5 minutes and just get a doodle in. Make sure that the sketchbook is there. Or you know what I mean? Like figure out what it is that you're already doing and then find a way to put the drawing into it in a way that flows naturally, right? So if you want to become a professional artist, I recommend that you learn to do your drawing in the morning. Let the most important things of your day should be in the daytime, in the morning time, right? As you wake up, you have the most amount of energy probably, or even if it takes you an hour to get energized, within the second hour, get your drawing in. So yeah, set up the environment so it's easy. Have triggers ready so that you don't have to think about it, because that's the only way you'll be able to keep doing it. Because there are going to come days where you just don't feel like doing it. And on those days, you want a system in place to make it as easy as possible, right? And for the goal of drawing every day, set the bar really, really low, right? So I did this with reading. About 3 to 4 years ago, I wanted to learn how to read every day. I wanted to become someone who reads, right? But I didn't like reading. Totally hated it. It felt painful to read because the emotional association I had with reading was very negative. So I started off by reading a sentence per day for months, right? And what you're thinking is, well, that's not really reading, right? A sentence isn't significant. If you want to read a book, if you read a sentence a day, you just won't get anywhere, right? But that's not the point. The point is to make the first part of it so easy and so natural that you can just add more on top of it without really stressing out, right? Because if in your brain, if something's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, you're more likely to quit on it, right? But if something's so easy that you can get it done in like 2 minutes to 5 minutes, then you might as well do it, right? And that way you develop this positive association with doing the task. Because if the goal is to do it for, if the goal is to read one sentence, as soon as you read one sentence, you get that dopamine hit. You get that satisfaction. Oh, I did that. I really did the thing that said I was gonna do, right? And I think that's the approach that works the best, because if it takes you 2 hours to reach a goal every single day, then that's very difficult to hit on a regular basis, especially if you're starting out, right? If you're already an experienced artist and you already draw naturally every day, then obviously this isn't for you, right? Like you already have that in place. But if you're someone that struggles with drawing every day, set the bar so low that even on your worst day, it'll be easy, right? So what I suggest is do a doodle a day. Just a doodle, like nothing more than that, right? So there's no constraint on quality or quantity, just a doodle, and then start there and do that for 4 or 5 months. And what will happen is that on the days where you feel good, you'll just draw more. Because you're already started, you might as well do some more, right? And at that point, you know, keep the goal low until you know that even on your worst day you'll do more, right? And the way you figure that out is, if on your worst day you only do a doodle, then keep the doodle as the goal, right? Then keep it there. But if on your worst days you still do more, then you could increase it, right? So it's not really about setting goals, right? It's about building a system where you can reliably know that you're going to do certain things, right? Like if you think about brushing your teeth, you probably brush your teeth no matter how tired you are, right? It's just something you do, right? And you want your drawing habit to be the exact same way. You want it to be the exact same way, where this is just a thing that I do, right? Like I assume that you don't think too much about brushing your teeth. Most people don't, right? So you want your drawing habits to be exactly the same thing, where it's just, this is a thing that I do. I don't even think about doing it. I just do it. It's just a thing that happens in my day. And the only way you get there is by setting the goal super low, right? The minimum requirement low. I'm not saying only do a doodle. Like, you don't limit the max, right? The goal is to do a doodle. You can do as much as you want after that, but as long as you did a doodle, you hit the thing that you're trying to hit, right? And the second thing that you want to, or the third thing, I don't know how many. I have no idea how much advice I'm giving. The last thing that you want to do is track the habit, right? So maybe just in the sketchbook, you draw a calendar and then you X off every time you do a doodle, right? You can do that. I use a schedule and a Google spreadsheet, but if you're just getting into this, make the system as simple as possible and in a way where you see it, right? I use a clipboard with my schedule for my day-to-day, and I have literally all the things that I want to do in a day that I do regularly, right? So like drawing, meditating, reading, like all those things that I know I want to do it every single day, I track it, right? This way I have this physical thing that I keep beside me at all times, even when I'm resting. So I know, like, oh yeah, there is the cue that, oh, I have to do these things. I don't even have to think about it anymore. I know that the schedule tells me what to do, so I don't have to debate in my head, right? Like when I wake up in the morning, I don't debate whether or not I want to draw. It's just what I do because the schedule tells me to do it, right? And then I think tracking something helps you develop that type of thinking where I have this system in place that I follow. And as long as I follow that, I know I'm going to produce results, right? It's very important to understand that building habits is all about emotions, right? It's all about emotions. If you're able to develop a positive emotion out of the activity, then you're more likely to do it, right? And that's why you want to set the bar low, right? Because if you say like, oh, I'm going to draw 3 hours a day, and you're tracking for 3 hours, unless you already built up to that, right? And as you build up towards that, you become more forgiving with yourself, right? Obviously, you're not going to do 3 hours every day. But if you have to hit 3 hours to feel happy, then that's too much. Then you're more likely to feel negative emotions around drawing because you're more likely to fail more often, right? So if you set the bar very low, like I do a doodle a day, then you develop this positive emotion where every time you think of drawing, you feel a positive emotion, you're much more likely to do it, right? Because you're like, no one has to build a habit of doing things that are instantly pleasurable, right? Like you don't have to build a habit of eating junk food. Most people will just do it for free. It's super easy. You eat it, you instantly feel happy. Well, you can develop that same type of emotion for any habit. And for drawing, that starts with a doodle a day. It's like, do the doodle, you instantly get the reward, the hit. So then over time, if you do this for months, your brain associates drawing with feeling good about yourself. Like, oh yeah, when I draw, I'm fulfilling my goals. And then over time, you can add more time to it, but that's how it starts. So start small, build an environment that makes it easy for you to get into, right? So keep a sketchbook. Like I recommend that even if you do digital work, to draw by hand once in a while. Maybe just to start, right? Like to start the habit, maybe you should just do something physical, like on paper, and then you can transition into digital. Because I think that would be beneficial. I think it's easier to create triggers for stuff on paper because the computer has built-in distractions. There's too many options, right? There aren't that many things that you can do with a paper and pen. You can write, which sure, but I don't. If you're willing to sit down and write, you're probably willing to sit down and draw anyway. So there isn't really much distraction that happen there. And figure out some way to track it. Like, it's very satisfying to look back and be like, oh yeah, for the past 3 months, I missed maybe a day here or there, but most days I did it because the bar was so low. So you feel that good emotion, right? And that's about it. Like it really is. It sounds simple, but that's how it starts, right? Like, it might sound like it's not a lot or it's not enough, but don't underestimate, how much this can help. Like, it will work if you give it enough time. It just takes time. That's the one problem, is that to develop that positive emotion for the work, to draw every day, it takes time. It takes a little bit of effort, but I think it's much easier than most people realize. And I hope that's useful. I might do more videos on this topic because I think this is the core of it. That's this. As long as you do these things, you'll be able to do it. And I know you'll be able to do it. Like, there's a lot of habits that you have now that you didn't have before. There are a lot of things that you've changed in your life that you don't even think about, right? Because you don't remember you don't remember the previous versions of yourself, right? You're just not aware of it because you don't track your entire life, right? But this is something that you can change yourself in a way that you can see. So just take the time to do it. And if you guys have any questions, let me know and I'll answer it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Wow, this is the worst outro ever. Bye.